Hey there, sports fans, and what a beautiful Monday it is. Not only is it a day to remember so many, but to honor so many as well. I hope everybody is having a happy and safe Memorial Day. Welcome back to FNN Sports Take with me, Kasey Hudson. I hope everyone's had a safe weekend. As we dive in and touch back on a few sports updates, we're not going to take up too much of your time today because everybody's still just kind of now digressing from the long weekend. I hope it still felt exciting and fun regardless of some restrictions in some areas, or if you went balls to the wall, then that's great as well. Now, of course, we kick off our segment chatting about some NFL news. We kind of briefly mentioned this last week, but NFL Governor yet again says sports teams can return to facilities as of yesterday. They can return without fans, of course, but he wanted to be specific as to say no fans in or around. So you can't go stand up outside of the stadium and looking from a distance and waving to your favorite guys. No. He still needs them practicing social distancing and being careful when they're not inside the facilities themselves. So no fans out there stalking or creeping. Got it? Cool. Now, as long as teams are getting to the logistics and getting all of that information down packed and trying to make this as safe as possible, the governor says do it, go for it. Not only do fans want sports back on TV, but he's ready for sports to be back on television. So that's what kind of encouraged him to get things moving along. And of course, if New York's doing it, we could be hopeful to see some other states making some leeway as well. We know the other week the NFL owners hopped on a conference call to discuss some important conversations in terms of coaches having more of an opportunity within the league. They made a lot of progressive strides in that. So the next call that these guys are hopping on will be tomorrow because they'll be discussing new rules and protocols in order for the NFL to return. We're getting closer. I can feel it. Now, we mentioned on Friday that this list of new rules and protocols went out to the players for review. And if they're doing it NHL style, which is why I said NHL earlier, if they're doing it NHL style, these players will be voting on these new rules and protocols, of course, to kind of feel out where their comfort level lies so that they can move forward and putting these new protocols in motion. We had so many fun conversations revolving around the draft when it came to Tua and his draft stock and what was going to happen and if his injuries and his collegiate career was going to prevent him from going first round. Well, guys, we saw what happened there. The Miami Dolphins went and made an amazing snag at getting Tua. We all agree that this was probably one of the best fits. And I mean, a gnarly joke to say, look, he's wearing number 1 on his jersey and he's going to be number 1 in these starving Miami fans' hearts. I don't say starving to be insulting. I say starving because these Dolphin fans are hardcore. They have been dying for that season for so long, and they come back just as hopeful the next year and the next year and the next year. You got to give these guys credit. So now they finally have someone to put some real faith and hope into, and Tua is this guy, but they're comparing him to Dan Marino now. I would really love to hear you guys' thoughts on this because come on, guys, it's Dan Marino. This kid hasn't started his career yet. He's shown to do some fancy stuff in the pocket. He's shown a unique skill set. He throws left-handed instead of right-handed, which is what I'm most fascinated about. But Dan Marino, already, he hasn't even taken his first snap in a Miami Dolphins jersey. This is jumping the gun just a little bit. I think we're past hopeful and getting a little crazy here. But, yep, conversations are taking place of if Tua can be the next Dan Marino. I won't give my whole opinion on that just yet. I do want to hear you guys' feedback, and we'll intertwine that into the next segment, but I will give you guys my full breakdown as to that whole comparison. Now, for other conversations in terms of Tua, we also want to know your opinion on sit him or play him. Is it going to be worthwhile to just throw him out there and start getting him in the game right away? Or do we take our time with Tua? Do we let him learn behind Fitzpatrick and Rosen while Rosen is still there? Because realistically, we can say it's fair enough that Rosen has no future with Miami Dolphins. So if anything, any play that he has coming up here will be a marketing opportunity so that he can get a good trade value to go elsewhere and really take off in his career. So when it comes to who he's going to actually learn behind, it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, come on, guys, he showed himself to be a very clutch player. He can show up at those moments that really matter, and he did that for the Bucs a lot. So Fitzpatrick obviously has some things and some tricks up his sleeve that he can show Tua, but as for Tua just coming out the gate and being the starting quarterback for the Dolphins or sitting for a minute, learning, soaking up some information, slowly developing, that would personally be the route I think needs to happen, not because Fitzpatrick is probably the most ideal QB to learn behind, because he's not, but because Tua's collegiate career ended due to injuries. He did have to get not one, but multiple surgeries, and that had a cloud hanging over him heading into the draft. So to just throw him into the NFL and say, take our team all the way, that's not realistic. And I don't think it's the safest situation to put Tua in either. Now, he feels healthy. He feels great. He's ready to kill it. That's awesome. But when you're coming out of certain surgeries and you're rehabbing and you're rebuilding those muscles, you want to be safe and secure to the fact that you're not just going to inflate them and irritate them right out the gate. And we're also in a very weird time where it's not like he's able to be out on the field as much or in the fashion that he typically would be. He's doing virtual OTAs right now. So he's just kind of not in a behind the ball situation, but he's not in the most idyllic situation to just hop on a field and be the franchise quarterback everybody wants him to be. So let us know your insight. I would really like to get some feedback on this. Do you sit him or do you play him? And is it worth it? Give him some time to develop, give him some time to really find his way, make his strides. He does have a very unique skill set. This can be a very promising move for the Miami Dolphins, but I think if they jump the gun, it's going to hurt them. When you're thinking franchise and you're thinking long-term, you build, you grow, you have patience. You don't throw them in and think that the whole team's just going to take off from that one moment. So we'll see what happens there. Now, on another note, we know that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were the two that were typically bantering and going back and forth on some things, but there's another Manning brother that wanted to get in on the banter, or that was forced into the banter. Eli Manning joins Twitter, which was a renowned situation that everybody was excited about and confused about in some ways. And the warm, humorous welcome he gets is from, of course, Tom Brady, who's already been having it out with his big bro. And Brady posts a meme of a basketball jump shot, and of course it says, like always, showing up late in the fourth quarter. Come on, Brady. Was that necessary? But of course, it was all in good spirits. Eli had his meme back at him, and they went back and forth for just a moment. But that was a nice, funny welcome to the Twitter world. It's interesting to see when these guys hop on so late. Like, are you really going to be involved in Twitter? Are you going to be active? Are you going to throw up a bunch of memes? Or are you just going to be a checkmark profile that's hanging out there because you kind of have to or you kind of want to? We will circle back to some more Manning conversation, but of course with big bro Peyton and Tom Brady, as they had a weekend with one another. Now, something we tried not to dive too deep into, this whole Dak Prescott situation and his franchise tag contract negotiations. We didn't speak too much on it because for the most part, when they're going back and forth on this, it's obviously because these players want the money that they believe they deserve, and the team has a capital that they're working within, and they have their own point of view as to what these guys deserve in that moment. We have to really think more moment than future in some circumstances. Now, because of how much this is getting dragged out, at this point, everybody's asking the same question now. Is there more to the story? Is there more going on here than just a young quarterback who believes he deserves a certain amount of money and he isn't getting it from the team, and what's really going on here? Now, Dak Prescott is obviously a great quarterback. He's made some huge strides with the Cowboys in his time there as well. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's very versatile on the offensive side of the ball. He's had over 1,500 passing yards, 97 touchdowns, and for himself, he's rushed over 1,200 yards. That's great, especially as a quarterback. He knows how to make some moves in and out of that pocket, and of course, he deserves to be paid well. In my personal opinion, or at least things that I've seen in certain research that I've done over time, when it comes to big contracts and big money, some of these guys, depending on their seasons with their teams and the circumstances, they're not looking at being the highest paid quarterback or one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league until their 7th, 8th year of their career, not particularly their 5th or 6th year in their career. So that's the part to me that's kind of like intriguing, because obviously when you're looking to rebuild a team, you have to spend money in certain areas, or you got to break it down and say, this year we're focusing on spending money on the defense, this year we're spending money on offense, this year we're spending money on special teams, so on and so forth. So the Cowboys have thought they've gotten it right the past 2 drafts, and they've done well. Some of their tight end moves I wasn't understanding investment-wise and loading up on their tight end roster. So there's been moves that they have made that have probably cost them money. But as for going into a 5th year franchise tag quarterback, do you really deserve to be one of the top paid QBs just yet? I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it, because he's obviously a very skilled QB, but is it time just yet? And if it really was time and it was kind of a no-brainer, would we really still be in these negotiations on a franchise tag? Like, for a team to put a franchise tag on you, they clearly believe in you. They clearly know that you bring something to this team. They clearly know that they need you. That franchise tag is one of the most negotiated situations amongst a GM and coaches in the financial department. So the fact that they gave that to him, they clearly believe in him and want to continue to build a team around him. But as for making him one of the highest paid QBs just yet, they're a little hesitant, it seems. Or is there more to the story? Usually what we tend to find out down the line is there might be something health related or just something else where they're not really ready to just invest all this money in somebody because it may not be a guaranteed situation. So because this is getting dragged out, it's kicking up a lot more questions. I hope there's not more drama to the situation, but we will see, because their deadline is slowly approaching in a little over 60 days. So something's about to happen. Make sure you guys stay with us as we cut to a quick commercial break and we come back chatting more about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and all of their fun banter over the weekend.
We wanted to move back home to be closer to his family. We decided to go with pods because things were stressful enough.
We weren't sure how long we were going to need storage for, so we needed something that was flexible, and then they can deliver the container to wherever we move to.
We haven't found the perfect house yet, but we're still looking.
All right, guys, welcome back. Now, we discussed that Tom Brady was nudging at and trying to get a rise out of Eli Manning earlier, but we have heard enough and plenty of banter between him and Peyton Manning. They did it on Zoom calls, they did it on social media, and now it was time for them to finally hit the green face-to-face and do all that, to one another in person. Now, the weather wasn't idyllic, but it was still a great time. If anybody caught it and watched it, it was on yesterday at 3:30 p.m. Brady was off to a little bit of a rough start on the green, and he was getting a lot of crap for that, of course. Now, to call him, and I don't know if it was like a reverse psychology pep talk in the crap talking department to get him going, but Charles Barkley gets a hold of Brady while he's in his golf cart on the green and challenges him to a few different things out there. And I think it revved up enough in Tom Brady to get him going. We know that Brady's not the kind of guy you count out anyway at any point of the game. So after he talked to Barkley, he started to get a little wind under his sails, and then Brady holed a 100-yard wedge shot, unfortunately, while his pants ripped and he dropped his microphone and it broke. It was a whole bunch of stuff. But either way, in that whole catastrophe of things, he got a $100K donation from Brooks Koepka, so that was fantastic. And all in all, these guys raised $20 million for COVID-19 relief and awareness, so that was amazing. Why not have an amazing time while raising such an amount of money towards something that everybody is in need of right now? So it was really, really, really fun to watch. Unfortunately for Brady's pants, he did take to Twitter earlier this morning to say, look, his pants just wanted to get in on the social distancing as well. So not only is Brady somebody who respects the rules, but apparently his clothes and everything that has to do with him does so as well. Anyway, congratulations to those guys. It was great watching Manning and Tiger and Brady and Mickelson tear it up on the green and have fun while doing so and raising a great amount of money towards COVID-19 and having just a fun day regardless of the weather. It was not a sunny day in Florida for these guys on the green yesterday. Now, for NHL, of all the leagues, the NHL has probably been the most, not reserved, or hushed. I don't really know how I want to say it, but we just haven't heard much like, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're doing. It's been more behind the scenes and then little by little as they go. But finally, we are making some strides in the NHL department. They issued an update on phased return sports protocol, transitioning period following the self-quarantine that all of their guys had to abide by ever since they shut down on March 12th. Now, in order for these new protocols to be adhered to, players will be able to head back to the facilities and train in small groups, no more than 6 players and players only. No coaches, no other team personnel, and it is strictly voluntary. They cannot force anybody to head back to the facilities for training. Now, I think this is extremely important because, as we mentioned last week, we got to hop on a press conference call with Alex Killorn, the Tampa Bay winger, and we got to ask him ourselves, what's it like trying to stay in hockey shape? Hockey is such an intricate sport. If you really pay attention to the many things these guys are doing on ice skates, you really feel for the fact that they have had limited access to some of the things that they really need to be doing in order to get back on the ice and have the best season or be the best player they can be on the ice. So I'm sure this is amazing news for these guys to start getting in these groups, getting back in the facilities, because the key here is for them to start testing their speed on ice skates and really measuring and gauging themselves on the ice. Alex Killorn himself said that to us last week. So that'll be a great stride for these guys to get back in their arenas. The other thing that took place last week on Friday is that the NHLPA Executive Board approved the format that was being kicked around of the 2014 playoff system. Now this starts to get very technical, if you want to say the least. And the structure, there's many structure formats that are being kicked around here. But in other words, it kind of comes down to the fact that the top 4 teams would get buys. And Killorn gave us a little bit of insight on that last week as to, like, he doesn't feel like that's the most accurate measure, because then you're giving some guys more time off, or some guys are getting more training in than others. So the evening the playing field is going to be very rigid in that area if they choose to continue to move forward with this 24 structure and whatever teams they're trying to put on top. We will get more information on this, of course, as this week goes along further and whatnot. But as for when the guys will be heading back to the arenas, they said that their target date is early June. June kicks off this weekend, so we should see these guys back in action within the next 2 weeks. So make sure you stay tuned with us. We have another quick commercial break coming up, and then we break down some NBA and NASCAR.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, welcome back. So if anything, we know the NBA has been trying very hard, especially Commissioner Silver, to really get something going here. They're in a split spot between what the MLS is going through and what the NHL is trying to figure out. You know, their seasons run parallel to NHL, so if anything, that's probably the most comparable we can discuss. When they talked about coming back and doing tournament style, that's kind of branching off of what the MLS is trying to do. As for figuring out this playoff structure and, you know, really figuring out what team deserves to be carrying a championship coming out of this 2020 season, that is very hard to kind of figure out. But what they're dialing down is probably doing the tournament style. Where they're looking to key in on is Disney Complex to reconvene, and they want to do it camp style. They wanted to be sure to say that what they mean by camp style is the fact that they want to host these guys here at the Disney Complex, and they want to make sure that they're waking up, they're eating, they're going to training, they're getting a minute to rest, they're getting a minute to go over plays, playbook, and anything, written material. They're able to have their in-person situations, and then they're able to play the game. So they just wanted to be. They get in, they get together, and they're just completely focused on knocking out this season, hence tournament style / camp style. We know that any sports returning, they will be going through a training camp before heading into any kind of game or playoff action. And the bottom line is that they're hoping to return the latest July. They feel like they're making some progressive strides in narrowing the situation down. And the bottom line is their priority continues to be the health and safety of all involved. We are working with public health experts and government officials on comprehensive set of guidelines to ensure the appropriate medical protocols and protections are in place before making any confirmed decisions. So again, they're one of those teams where we've probably heard the most information of, even if it was a little tidbit of something every single week. We know all these teams are working so hard to figure out the safest way to get these guys back out there, but more information comes out every week, which means we are a step closer to having sports back to us, other than the few that returned. We got to watch a few fights. We got to see some cars shredded up on the track. And speaking of that, NASCAR had their Coca-Cola 600, and the victor of that was Brad Keselowski. Congratulations to Keselowski. He had, again, between Harvick, Keselowski, and Hemlin, if I said his name properly, they've all had the same reaction. They hop out of these cars, they're stoked to win, but then it's kind of like, they miss the fans. And Keselowski went to video in an interview to say the same thing. He said, yeah, I got out of that car. It was great. I was so happy to win the 600. But then it's like you look around and you're like, well, where's the roaring fans? Like, and to gauge more of a reaction from your team, you feel that stuff. You thrive off of that stuff. So all in all, Keselowski says, you know what, this was fantastic, but I just can't wait to have fans back in the stands. And I'm sure that goes for a lot of guys, especially because we heard it from Harvick and Hamlin as well. And when these other teams go to return, I can only imagine that these guys, they're going to have tunnel vision on the field. But in those key moments where, your crowd, your fans, your audience are backing you and they're chanting offense or they're chanting defense or they're just saying that stuff that even within tunnel vision that penetrates at the right moment, and it's that extra kick in these clutch opportunities, of course fans matter. So it's going to be very weird to see how many sports return without fans and for how long. This could be for the rest of the 2020 season, just to be very precautious, or some people may start allowing some fans in, and we talked in smaller numbers and dosages, of course. So hopefully this will be a key week to just get that extra amount of information, or at least some, affirmed start dates with these things. Again, we at least have enough to look forward to every week. All in all, guys, I hope everybody had a very safe and fun Memorial weekend. And look, the best thing about 3-day weekends is that you have a short work week to return back to. So tomorrow will be a great and exciting Tuesday. We will see you back here on Wednesday. Of course, as always, be kind, be compassionate, stay safe, and stay smart. I'll see you guys Wednesday night at 8 p.m.